5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, a show where we interview industry leaders and disruptors, revealing the success secrets to create and unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Now your hosts, Thaddeus and Evan.
Revealed with Thaddeus and Evan. This week we are joined by Bryan Arzani, right?
What's up? Yes. Nice work, bro. Not many people get that right. Nice job.
All right. I appreciate it. He's Vice President and co-founder of the Results Group. So if you're into results, probably should tune in. If you're not, see you later. See you next week. Bryan is nationally recognized keynote speaker, facilitator, trainer, specializing in talent alignment, and in a job market that we are in right now, where it is so hard to find good people, so hard to keep good people around without having to overpay them. This is a conversation that I'm very, very, very excited to get into. And part of what Bryan is amazing at is identifying talent and getting the most out of people by understanding them at a really, really deep level. A couple of weeks ago, we had on Kathy Nielsen, coach. So if that doesn't give you enough credibility, I don't know what does. So welcome, Bryan, to the show. I'm super excited to get into this, man.
Cheers. Thanks, Daddy. Thanks, Evan.
All right. Yeah, you got your sparkling water. Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's orange pomegranate. It's going to give me like energy to have fat loss. Let's go.
Perfect. I love it. Well, and so a little bit of backstory here. So Bryan being... again, his business is called Results Group, right? He decided to stop drinking, and he let us know this before the show. We told him about drinking on the show, and it's fine, and you can hang out with us. And he's like, no, I committed to this. The dude's in coaching and consulting and leading people. And if you don't have the ability to get yourself to do something, even when you don't want to do it, then you're probably not a really great coach. So I think you're already role modeling exactly what it is that a great consultant should be. So kudos to you.
Thanks, brother. Thanks. I just like doing stuff that sucks and makes me uncomfortable. So there you go.
And that's also gets you outside your comfort zone, right?
Not many people are willing to do that.
So everything you got right now is inside of it, right? Everything you got and everything you want's outside of it. So
I love it. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about Results Group, and then we'll also get into Intermetrics as well, which you're also the president of, and I can't wait to get to that part of the conversation too.
Oh yeah, man. So Results Group is our training and consulting business. We've been doing it now for 17 years. I've been in the industry for 22. When I left to start this, we didn't take any clients, started from scratch all over again. So we own about 5.5 years of leadership development curriculum that relates to performance engagement from the Center for Organizational Design. We've got sales training, sales, all that kind of stuff. We literally get in and just get the most intimate, action within an organization, which is the talent, and figure out how to align, acquire, succession plan, you name whatever it is. And then a little different action from us is, rather than us being the only group that's going to work or get us on stage and talk all the time, we like to download everything that we know into our leaders so that we can empower them to be able to do it. Because the people that typically are the best at, executing on a technique, whether it's conflict or questioning or whatever it is, are the people that train it. So why the hell do we keep that knowledge within just the consultant? Well, why? Because that's the business model that they were taught how to run. And I think that model sucks. If I can't install that knowledge into my clients, then they're not going to get any better ultimately. And when I leave them, they're going to need. And so we build a model because that's what the market really needed and wanted. And we figured out how to monetize it in a way that allowed us to put some consumable stuff out there that, as long as we keep adding value, then we're going to stay in business. So we're in 17, going on 18th year. And I'm just grateful, man, to be able to have, early on, I got to be honest, early on, I don't think I was that good. I go back and say, hey, I'm really sorry. Can I make it, good? Like, no, that was really great then. I'm like, I'm better now. So, but it's the key to sticking around is just make enough money to pay for your mistakes and be humble enough to get the criticism from your clients when you suck. So I love it.
Wow. Which, I would love to take a look at your Intermetrics report and see where humble ranks on there. But being that our show is called Success Secrets Revealed, one of the questions I love to ask is, what does success mean to you? And especially being in the role that you're in with even the company name, I love that you put it as Results Group, meaning that is your mission, is to provide results for clients. So I'm curious, what does success mean to you?
Here's the deal. I mean, I think different phases of life give you different perspectives and different answers. Probably about 10 years ago when all my kids are grown now. They're all off the payroll. They're all self-sufficient. Daughter's 27, son's 25, son 23, and a son that's 21. For me right now, success is no regrets. I look back and I'm very serious. That's a tough thing. I talk about that too much, I'll probably start crying. But dude, I love my fucking family with all my heart. And that's everything that I do. And I told my wife about 10 years ago, I said, I want to make sure there's a country song out there that talks about pushing pause. And I'm like, I want to put pause right now. But it made me become very intentional about no regrets. So I wake up every day and I've got a mantra that I follow, and it changes here and there. But today's meet the moment. That's what I write every day. Is meet the moment. What's the moment mean? But success, success is knowing what I want right now and aligning my life to get it. And that changes every 2 to 3 years. And so success is a constantly moving target. It's not about money. Money's easy to make. And it's not about, it's just figuring out what's inside your heart right now. So yeah, success right now is no regrets. And I'm dreaming about 6 sizes too big, and there's not enough freaking hours in the day for me to get what I want right now. So that is, there you go.
So looking at like the mantra, no regrets, or as some people aptly regret their tattoo choices later, no regrets with an A. That's what I always think of when I hear no regrets, no regrets. But looking at that, and it's a phenomenal concept on that. Walk us through that. How does somebody have no regrets in things that they do?
I think the biggest thing is just being able to look in the mirror and ask myself the question, what prevented me from getting the outcome I wanted? Did I not know how? Did I choose not to? Was I not capable? And then putting that into action. And the no regrets thing is, that's the haunting piece that causes type A alpha men and women that haunts. And so I just look at things and I just release the guilt. Guilt's a wasted emotion. And I've learned to not worry about the guilt and just get rid of it. Now it's easier said than done, but what does it really mean and how do you do it? It's a constant intentional reflection. We don't learn from experience. That's a big thing when I teach and I work with people is we don't learn from experience. We learn from reflection on experience. And that's where that engineering of epiphany kicks into the brain and you start going, you know what? Yeah, I could have done that different. And then the question is what prevented me from recognizing it ahead of time? And then how do I never, ever repeat that again? So it's a lesson learned, not a repeat. And so, and then also success is just continuing to find shit that just makes me uncomfortable, whether it's jumping off of a cliff because I'm deathly afraid of heights or, it's just being uncomfortable. So I pray that I don't ever get ready to go out, like to do a show like this or to get on stage in front of folks. The moment I'm no longer nervous is the day to hang it up and get out of it. I love it. I mean, it just fires me the frick up, man.
So what was the last thing you did that made you uncomfortable?
The last thing I did that made me uncomfortable was literally this morning. I got up and there was like seven things that I've been procrastinating, not wanting to do. And I walked in and I told Jennifer, my business partner, we've worked together forever. And I told her, I said, Jen, these 7 things I don't want to do today. And I know that I should be doing them. I don't want to do them. And so I want you to kick me in the ass and do it. And she goes, why didn't you tell me this Monday? And I'm like, because I just felt like I should have worked through it. And she goes, dude, we teach this shit for a living. What's your fucking problem? Right. I'm like, I know, take more medicine. Just being honest, making yourself uncomfortable. That's, I mean, it doesn't sound like much, but I openly said, you know what, if I teach it and live it, I got to continue to relearn it. I bought some stuff here recently, some land, and it makes it a little risky. You're just going, now, am I on the bubble? Am I on the bubble? You know what? Just do it, and I'll figure it out. So, yeah.
There's a mentor of mine, and he always talks about if we only did the things that we know we ought to do, imagine where your life would be in this moment, right? And it's rarely ever a lack of knowledge as to why someone doesn't have the business they want, the body they want, the family they want, the relationships they want. It always comes down to a lack of action. So in your experience, what is it that's really preventing people from taking action on the things they know they ought to do?
I used to struggle with that. I had a foster brother that was my age, and he passed away 6 years ago from cancer. When he came in to live with us, he was already really, really sick. So from kindergarten until 6 years ago. And one of the things that when he was diagnosed with terminal cancer, I said, dude, I'm going to buy a bus. We're going to drive around the country. We're going to go see every freaking place in the country with your kids. And he's like, nah, I'm going to beat this. I'm going to work through it. And I said, dude, regardless, let's just go do it. And it wasn't until like the nurse his wife called me and she said, it's going to be any time, because he was breathing like once every 15 minutes. And I'm sitting there going, okay. So I jumped in the car, go out there. And what was crazy was literally once every 15 minutes he was breathing, and then he would stop, and it would, and so the nurse said it's going to be any time. And I mean, he was moving slow. And so about 45 minutes or an hour or so after she said those words, I showed up, and he stood up, had his morphine bag, and he was my size before he got sick. He weighed about 86 pounds at this time. And he stood up with his morphine bag and his oxygen, and he goes, "The fuck I am." That's what he said. And I'm like, "What are you talking about, Steve?" He goes, "I'm not dying today." And we went down and we organized his garage. We organized his basement. We organized his closet. And we just started doing all of this shit. And for like literally probably about 7 hours, he was on his feet and we were just knocking stuff off, right? Here, I want you to give this to so-and-so. Here, I made phone calls. We did all this stuff. And here's what I learned. When you don't know what your priorities are, you don't have any compass from which to make decisions off of. I don't have any compass to make decisions off of. But the more I want it and the more clear I am about it, dude, you can literally keep yourself from dying. And my brother taught me something in that moment, that the clearer I am about what I want, the easier it is to take action. And I don't give a shit what your personality is. If you want it and you are clear about it. And so I know that was in his head. Like, I need to get the garage organized. I need to get rid of all this shit. I need to get all this clutter gone. And so, you know, what prevents people from doing it? I'd like to give you some sexy, cool answer, but at the end of the day, they don't clearly know what they want. And so definition of time management is not about to-do lists. It's not about, you know, proactiveness, all this other bullshit that books are written on. It's aligning your life with your priorities. And if you don't know what your priorities are, then you're never going to figure out what to focus on and when to go do it. And so that's where the no regrets thing happened for me. And there were a lot of other things I was already kind of working on, but that solidified it for me.
Well, I like that. Like, I always think about, you know, when people go on vacation, right? The amount of work and stuff that they actually complete with like the 2, 3, 4 days leading up to vacation, like from a work perspective, right? Now, I'm just going to use work as the example. I mean, you can insert anything on here, but they're like, well, shit, I'm going on vacation. I need to do this, this, and this, and this. And they actually do productivity for the couple of days leading up to it. Like, what would happen if you had a bigger why? You know, and like we chatted briefly about that before we got on, you know, and that's your vision, right? The clearer you are. So somebody looking at this and they're hearing, okay, cool, that's awesome. You talk about the clearer you are. What if they don't have a clear path forward? You know, what if they're stuck? What if they don't see a vision? How can they better create one for themselves?
That's a really cool question, man. So I speak from personal experience whenever I talk about this. So I've done goal sheets. I don't like goal sheets. I'm not really a big fan of goal sheets, but there are a couple of goals in my life that I really, really got into. And what it is, and I'll show you this. I'm going to put it over here. So here's my goal sheet from 1991 when I wanted to be a state champion wrestler, right? I filled all this shit out. And I keep it to this day. So when I think about that, here's what I did to help get me in alignment. I did a timeline, a lifeline. So I put down and this is something that, you know, your people that are listeners can do. I put down the day that I was born, and then I put today's date on this timeline, and I put every major thing that I've ever done up that's a major deal to today. And then I went down to the date I'm going to die. And that's kind of morbid and weird, but I put down the date I'm going to die. And then I put every major event in my life that I'm going to do. And it took me weeks and weeks and weeks to do this. I even got down to where I had the name of my grandkid, right? And then as I started to get into this dream, I'm like, shit, man, I need to extend my date of death. And so I moved it out like 10 years, put more shit on it. And then I went out like 10 more years. And then pretty soon I'm like, fuck, I'm never going to die. Because I've got the great, great, great grandchild's name while I'm sitting in this chair drooling with my, you know, and I got my, you know, so at the end of the day, you know, and I live from that, man. I live from that list of what I'm going to do before I die. And because here's the thing, the human mind doesn't differentiate fact versus fiction. And here's the deal. Anybody that's listening right now, I don't have an original idea in my body. Okay. The application of the shit that I do is original, but there's no more new ideas. So please don't think that I created all this shit on my own. I just love to read and apply knowledge. There's no more new ideas. There's just new people learning old lessons. There you go. All right. So back to it. So that timeline, that he said, that drives me, man. I sit there and look at it and go, okay, I want that. And if I don't want it anymore, I just take it off my list. You know, I don't lie to myself. I mean, the biggest person to trust on the planet is myself. And I spent years lying to myself, and then I stopped believing myself. And then it's like, that sucks. And now I believe myself because I'm brutally honest. I'm like, dude, I don't, if I wanted it, I do it. I don't want it. Right. So, but that's, yeah.
Yeah. And I love that, right? I mean, that's a phenomenal exercise that I think a lot of people could really do to gain clarity on what they want to achieve, because and I know, one of the other ones that I've heard, and I've actually never did I do this? I can't remember where I heard it from, but write your own eulogy.
Dude, that's powerful. Yes.
Like, if you could write your own eulogy, like, how do you want to be remembered in your life? And I mean, like, it takes a lot to be able to do that, because you have to be introspective, and like, you're gonna cry and you're gonna have tears. And you know, it's been a long time since I've done this exercise, but I know when I actually came out of a bad breakup and I'm like, I'm gonna do all this stuff, and I wrote it down, and it shattered me and brought me to tears when I wrote that. Now, obviously, I have to go back and revisit that in the stage of my life that I'm at. But you said your timeline drives you. What if a timeline doesn't drive you? What if you do this exercise and you do it and you're like, shit, I don't have this timeline. It doesn't do it for me. So how do you find out when you're doing these sorts of things, what's actually going to make you internally tick?
You know, that gets into my Intermetrics side of the business, man. I mean, so, and we have a process called the Genius process. We did a research project for 11 years, looked at a few 100,000 people. And the more closely I'm aligned with things that I value and I'm passionate about, and that just come easy and natural to me, not easy from the standpoint of like a struggle, but just natural. I don't ever accidentally write my name with my left hand, right? Never. And so some people try to write goals and shit that are just so stupid. They're like, I want to master the piano, but I hate music. What? No, shut up, right? But so yeah, you're spot on, dude. So that introspection is, you know, what were you built to do? What did God put you on this earth, and how did He wire you, right? And what just makes sense, and get all that head trash out of your head about, well, the book says I got to do this and go to college and get a degree so I can be the president of Microsoft. What? Fuck you. You don't like that stuff. You like the application of knowledge, not the acquisition of it. So go find a job that pays you a shitload of money to apply knowledge versus acquire it. Or if you do love acquiring knowledge, go be a research analyst and a specialist. Don't try to become a public speaker. If you're socially awkward, you know, an introvert, then go work with things, not people. So part of it is, I think, to your point, man, is what do you got inside of you? And a lot of people don't know. They guess, or they lie to them, or whatever, or they've been told. And that's what's so fun about what we do, is we engineer that and provide data at a deeper level, so somebody can sit there and go, you know what? I never did have to study for that class in school. It just came natural. And yeah, I lose track of time when I'm doing that. And dude, I dread that. And so, I mean, granted, you got to earn the right to pay people to do the things you suck at. And I also got to hate to lose more than I hate the discipline it takes to win. And so I may do some things that suck in pursuit of being able to do that thing. But that's been my life, you know? And so that's a great question. So I think part of it is figuring out, what do you flat out love and lose track of time doing? And then how do you get yourself in a position where you might be able to get compensated for it?
Well, I definitely want to take a trip into that. But first, I got to say, the timeline thing, I have not done that. I wrote it down. I'm definitely going to do it. My wife's done it. I saw her do it. Take weeks to do it.
Yeah.
And I loved it, but I didn't do it. So I'm going to do it. But I did in 2007. We had Matthew Kelly come out. I worked with the Cutco Corporation selling knives back in the day.
I love that. I've bought Cutco knives from high school kids.
Who hasn't, right?
I was going to say, do you want to buy some more?
Like a $400 knife, nothing's pimp. And you know what? I don't know how to sharpen that bastard. So let's talk after this is over.
Yeah.
We know a guy. But we did have Matthew Kelly come out. He's the author of The Dream Manager, which is a book I loved because it was an easy read and it was a story, right? But he talked about 100 dreams, writing down 100 dreams. And we did it while we were there. And it was funny because I found the typed out list when we packed up our house and moved. And last year I checked off one of the dreams off of there, which was learning to play Time of Your Life on the guitar. It's not good, but I learned how to do it. And just a couple of weeks ago, we went ziplining through the rainforest in Costa Rica. And not only I got to do it, but we got to take our kids and I got to push them off first. So it was great.
That is so cool.
It was an unreal experience, but being
I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. See ya.
See ya.
Now they're going to be in therapy and be paying that bill, bro. Nice. No, that is awesome, man. That is so cool. Yes. I've never heard of that. 100 Dreams. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah. Like he does a lot of thought joggers when he's doing it live, which was really cool. But like writing down adventure dreams and intellectual dreams and educational dreams. And yeah, it's a great exercise. Knowing yourself. This is something you just talked about, and understanding what it is that makes you tick, what it is that's going to drive you internally. You are the president of Intermetrics. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Intermetrics and how this can really give a peek behind the curtains as to what it is that makes you tick?
Yeah. So Intermetrics is really, it's a psychometric software company that's built assessments for other companies over the years. And so I met the founder of Intermetrics when I was learning this stuff, and I started bugging the heck out of him. And then in 2006, he left and said, I'm never going to build an assessment for another company. I'm just going to build one for myself. I was leaving and starting my own thing, and I was looking for access to psychometric tools. What was unique about it was Intermetrics took the approach that said, having one dimension, looking at somebody from one dimension, like an X-ray, gives a lot of data. And every single instrument on the planet looks at them from one dimension, whether it's, the Gala strengths, or it's, the Enneagram, or the Berkman, or the predictive index, or Myers-Briggs. They're all or DISC. They're all a dimension. And we all have said people are complex. You got to blah, 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 blah. Well, Intermetrics took the approach and said, let's look a little deeper. We can look at this. And so what Intermetrics was doing was it was building validated and reliable instruments that can be used in the recruitment and selection processes and in the talent development. Because if it's not reliable and validated, then it's illegal to use it in those processes, because it could have harmful impact based on race, gender, other adverse impacts. And so that's what they were doing. And so his intent was to go out and to sell this to consultants. Well, when you've got a theoretical person who just knows in a vacuum kind of how it works, that's okay. But I was the dude who drank the Kool-Aid and was using all of these instruments, using them with clients and customers, and having some success with it. And so a serendipitous event for about 2 years occurred where Jay had to kind of leave the business and work through some things. And I continued to help him grow it by selling it to other consultants while growing the results group. When he came back, we'd added like 100 and some consultants. He kept 100% of the money. And he's like, dude, you're better at getting consultants up to speed, understanding it and utilizing it than I am. Why don't you just kind of run it for us? And so Jennifer and I, my partner, we did it. So we've been running Intermetrics in North America for, like 13, 14 years. And so we teach, train, and certify a couple thousand consultants, and they run their solopreneurirships and such. And then we train, teach, and support leaders and managers and consultants all across the, in terms of application of it. But it goes deeper than anything else on the planet. You can see the superficial stuff. Yeah, hey, I'm a smiler, I'm an introvert, or whatever. But then it gets down into, why do you do what you do? Which is kind of your question, Thaddeus. We're like, what if you don't know, right? Because I think I might know, but let's take it out. So it creates objectivity around this subjective thing called humans. Objectivity around this subjective thing called me. And then I get into the deepest one, which gets into in what order at the synaptic level do I process thought about the world outside of me? And then in what order am I currently processing data and information about the world inside of me? And so we can actually measure how clearly you see where you're going. I call it the old, like from the Pirates of the Caribbean, the Captain Jack Sparrow compass. Dude, I can pull out your Captain Jack Sparrow compass, because sometimes it points toward the rum. Sometimes it points toward the treasure or the black pearl. And sometimes it just spins and he goes, I can't believe I don't know what they want, right? Freaking right. I want the rum, baby. Let's get after it, right? So, and so there's a lot of leaders out there that I was working with that claimed they bought into their vision, mission, and all goals, all this kind of crap. And I looked at the data. I'm like, nah, you're not convicted, bro. You're just superficial. Like, how dare you? I'm like, well, you answered some questions and it shows that you don't quite, and then that unlocks some things. And so Malcolm Gladwell talks about when you've spent 10,000 hours doing the same thing, you can become best in the world. Well, here's the thing. I never got exposed to one instrument. And because if you got exposed to one and you use it for a long time, the familiarity and the comfort level is ridiculous. And you start to look at the world from that lens. So some folks that are only trainers, they look at the world and go, oh, training can fix all problems, or counseling can fix all problems, or this test can fix all problems. And I came at it more from the grandson of a hog farmer, where we can fix anything with some baling wire and duct tape and pliers, dude. I don't give a shit. I can fix anything, right? And so I started looking at these tools going, I don't value any one of them more than the other. And so we started using all of them with every single person all the time. And then we were doing recruiting, which was brutal. And we started bringing in some really super rock star studs. And then we would put studliness into weakness because the team that we were putting them into sucked, but they didn't know how bad they sucked until we installed like excellence. And then we broke them. And so then that got into, why don't we look at everybody that key person is going to touch? That got us into org development and other types of things. And so we just went to market with a different approach and looking at talent from a very organic, very deep level. So we had not only an X-ray, we had a CAT scan, which gives us two different cool looks. And then we got into this weird like MRI PET scan look, and not one of them had everything, but you start combining it and it starts giving you some key points. And dude, so now I know why the dude who is maybe introverted and kind of quiet and really awkward on the outside at a deep, deep level, maybe he needs to have like deeply personal interactions, but he's just awkward to get there, or vice versa. The guy that smiles and goes, hey, kumbaya, but deep down he's like, I hate people. Right? So yeah, dude, it's been a wild journey, and I feel like every day I wake up and it's a brand new one, because there's no two people that are the same, which taps into my desire to never get bored.
Well, and that was something that fascinated me about the Gala Clifton strengths idea. And I had a friend that took a deep dive into that. And I remember what he told me in terms of like 1 in 9 billion is the odds of having the exact same 1 through 37 some odd strengths, right? Which when I looked at your test and the amount of different variables that went into it, I'm sure that number is even higher in terms of finding someone else that has the exact same results A through Z as you.
Yeah. And then you also take into account, Evan, that you also got to look at like IQ, like intellectual quotient. You also got to take into account life experience and paradigm. So if I grew up in an inner city, I'm going to have a whole different paradigm about strangers than someone that grew up in a rural area where we leave the keys in our car, right? Right. Mm-hmm. So that's a big deal. Or maybe I've worked in a corporation, very structured, and now I'm going to go to work for a ma pa, hiring their first, outside technician, right? That's a hat trick, bro. I don't give a crap if you got all the knowledge, experience, and the right personality. If you've only worked in this certain environment, man, that could all get neutralized in this new environment that has nothing to do with all that stuff we measure. So when we talk holistically, that's what I'm talking about for sure. But you're right, man. It's so many different things you're measuring, and how does it apply? And what's interesting too about the Gallup process, if Gallup, they do research, right? They're a research company. Had they gone through the processes of making there's a valid and reliable instrument that could be used that was EEOC compliant, they would have owned the world. But they didn't, because they were in a different intent. So they're moving books and they're moving some curriculum for development. And here's the gap. The gap is this: you get all this data in a company and you're like, oh, we need some woo and some analytical, whatever the words. And then they go, we got to go out and recruit and find these people. Dude, Wells Fargo had to put a memorandum out that said you cannot ask what their strengths are because it's illegal. The moment you ask what it is, you can actually say, I wasn't hired because I'm woo, and it can't be used in recruitment. So it's good for development. No arguments. It's a great tool. It's just, it doesn't fill from acquisition and identification all through the life cycle to the end of somebody's career. So any instrument you use out there is aces. It's awesome. I don't have any argument about which ones are better, but it's understanding what you want to do with it from a systemic big picture perspective. And now more than ever, because talent is so hard to find, and you better show these younger folks how they fit in and where they can go career-wise. And you're guessing a lot of times. You go, you could eventually be a manager. Well, what if I'm one of the most profitable individual contributors, man, and I can just kick ass out in the field doing the work? Why do you want to promise me something and tell me that that's what I got to go do? Because now I'm going to feel guilty if I don't want to do it, or I'm going to waste the time I got here because I think I want that. And so, yeah, I digress, dude. I'm sorry.
No, and that is a very, very common thing in business is, oh, we've got our top sales guy. Fuck, he's the next manager, right? Top technician. Oh, you're the new service manager.
There you go, bro.
Meanwhile, you're taking the person who's one best at their craft on your team out of their position where they thrive. So now you're lacking there. Two, they may suck at communication with people. They may suck at accountability. They may suck at teaching down to the level at which a new technician is at. So how is it that you could possibly expect them to excel in this role unless you understand how it is that they speak to other people, how it is that they think, what is their internal operating system?
Yeah, dude, you give me a stud home comfort advisor or whatever vocabulary, and you know, an in-home salesperson, and they're the top guy. Here's the deal. They're top because they only like people they can leverage, okay? They are ridiculously motivated to make money, and they only turn the charm on when they see how they can flip it, and they only learn what they got to learn so they can get the most that they want, and they hate helping weak elk, meaning they don't do unpaid consulting. So the moment they sniff that this isn't a deal, they kick it to the curb, and they don't do any call reports. They don't do anything that has to do with paperwork. When you become a manager, what do? You do a shitload of paperwork. You do a shitload of analysis and learning about shit that may not mean much. You got to deliver all those reports because there's all kinds of rules because the CFO and the owner and the manager want this shit. And then, oh, by the way, you got to go help a bunch of weak elk who suck. And you look at it and go, dude, I go close that deal for you. I make a $20 override and you make $2,000. Piss off, you know? And so I just look at top salespeople and go, dude, they are the worst ones to put into that role. And here's the thing. I say that, but I am the most profitable individual contributor in Intermetrics and Results Group. I own the company, but I don't run it because it's not my talent. I can do this. I can do this and teach it better than anybody on the freaking planet. And I'm not saying that out of ego. I mean, I'm sitting at probably 40,000 hours at this point. And I love it. And I don't know. I got people who literally are working for a company, and within 4 months, they're a profitable solopreneur. Or I've got organizations that, you know, I got a client that's losing $30,000 a month out of his warehouse because he had the wrong manager and the wrong shipping people doing it. We fixed that problem. Dude, that was a $360,000 problem, and I fixed it in a month because he was blinded by relationships and other shit that he thought because, you know, whatever. I mean, it's crazy when you get into the deep levels and you can create objectivity on that subjective thing. You know,
well, as business owners, we are the bottleneck. We are the only thing that is going to hold our business back from being all that it can be.
There you go.
Your superpower is your kryptonite.
There you go. That's well said, bro. Yeah. Kryptonite for sure.
Yeah. Time for our favorite part of the show, I think, and then we'll get into Thad's next question.
All right.
This is our random question generator. So it's one of our favorite parts because it has nothing to do with anything that we were talking about, although you could twist it into that way, I'm sure, if you wanted to. So what, A, B, C, or D? Which question would you prefer?
When I used to do multiple choice, I just pick all the above, so D.
All right.
You didn't go AC, DC throughout the whole test? I actually...
Thunderstruck, baby. That's a good deal.
I did that once on a test just for shits and giggles that I wanted to see. Like, I didn't give a fuck about the results, and I went AC/DC throughout the entire test. I walked out in like a minute and a half after the test, and like everybody around was like, "What the fuck did this guy just do?" And I handed it in, 52%, baby.
The house wins.
Isn't it something like 67% is always C?
I don't know.
That's something ridiculous like that.
I would hope that 50% of statistics are all made up.
That is true.
That one I just said.
Yeah, definitely.
86% of all facts are believed by 37% of all the people, regardless of what is said from the stage.
There you go.
All right, go ahead, brother.
Amazing. What's something that you believe you'll never be able to do well?
Ooh. Something I believe I'll never be able to do well. I would say definitely play the piano because I have absolutely no rhythm. I mean, I can dance like a home. I'm good at dancing, but yeah, play the piano. No way. There you go. And also keep my mouth shut when I'm pissed.
There it is. Yeah.
There you go. I don't know that I'll ever be able to do that or hide my emotions. I could just keep going, dude. Yeah. That's why I've been involved in city council. I've been involved in school board. Dude, within like a year of me being on the school board, we fired all the administrators. I was so pissed. Got rid of all of them. That's the problem with education is lack of leadership right there, bro. I can fix the whole problem. I've been doing it for 13 years. Fix the school district, get the right leaders. Aces right there.
Done.
Well, that's any organization, right? You put the right person at the top and away it goes.
Yep.
Right. And that actually kind of blends well in. It's like you almost read my mind on what I was going to ask before the random question generator. And so we talk, you talked a little bit about promoting the right and the wrong people. Your top comfort advisor isn't necessarily going to go into the bid of that service manager, so on and so forth. So looking at, the objective to the subjective, I think is your words on how you phrase that. Hopefully I got that right. How do you look at your people to be able to ensure that you're promoting the right person into these roles? And how do you ensure you get the right leaders at the top of the organization?
Dude, that's a powerful question. And here's what people probably think. People think I'm going to answer this a certain way, but here's what I'll tell you. The most powerful way to do that is you got to download the knowledge of self-awareness into your people. You got to download it into them. You got to help them become so freaking self-aware and empower them to become authentic, meaning to learn to stay in their lane because that's where they're engaged, happy, all of those kind of key HR words we got going on today. And then once I download that into them, then we co-author their career path so that if I've got somebody that's paid the price and is loyal and all that kind of stuff, and they say, I want to be the manager, right? I want to be the leader. Eyes wide open. I can say, here's the thing. Here's how you're not going to be engaged and not fed. So what's your plan to mitigate that, right? Mm-hmm. So because I had a top sales guy that said, I want to be the manager, and he listed all the reasons. I said, here's the thing. While you do have a motivator to lead, your motivator to win and get paid is stronger than your motivation to lead. And he's also a very type A, highly driven dude, and he's wired to be as talented at whatever he wants to do. So, literally 2 years into it, he come back to me, he's so pissed off. He's like, dude, I'm not making what I thought I could making good money. And he's so competitive because his wife was in sales too, and she was making like $475, and he was only making like $330, which was pissing him off. And he's like, I go out and help these guys, close deals. Fuck it. Right? And I'm like, Ed, we talked about this, dude. And you said, right? And so he's like, oh, but no, we talked about it. You eyes wide open. But then what we'd already done is we'd created the path to allow that individual to go back, not down and not backwards, but back into the role that we knew they would flat out love, eat, breathe, sleep, poopy, and lose effort, time, and energy to do. So that's the key. So if they want to do it, and we know it's probably not going to be ideal, if you have enough reasons, you can do the most amazing things. But objectivity around the subjective thing. And so then before they even get in there, we actually say, here's the areas you're not going to be fed and you're going to struggle with. And okay, I can struggle with 20, 30% of my day. It's okay. But then what are those critical areas? So eyes wide open, we create that ahead of time. And then it's not a personal conversation. I'm not judging you. It's your data, dude. Your data said this. So does that kind of answer the question, Thad? You can ask more on that. I can go deeper, but that's really kind of the thing is you co-author it. And what's so crazy is when we talk about trust is the willingness to be vulnerable. How powerful is it to have a leader willing to say, I suck at this, right? But I've got a couple of people around me that don't suck at it, meaning it's not their blind spot. So I empower my subordinates to hold me accountable to those blind spots. Or to use an education example, how cool is it to have a senior administrator or a principal say, you know what, I really love teaching, but I don't like holding teachers accountable. What if we had a vice principal to do all of that crap so that principal could go off and be the educational instructor or vice versa, right? So those are the things. So we can create hybrid moments where maybe it isn't ideal, but if I've got the right complement by design, right, with the data, then they can offload responsibility, stay in their lane, have accountability, and just brutally honest, naked conversation. And then how empowered are their people to go, you know what? Yeah, I love working for Bryan, but Bryan sucks at strategic planning and he doesn't like having uncomfortable conversations. He's too emotional. Okay, cool. That's it. It's not offensive if it's true, right?
Well, and I look back to when we had Kathy Nielsen on the show and we did the Intermetrics, Evan and I, did the Intermetrics report, and then we had her on, him and I and her went through that report. And one of the things that she used to do in her office, and I think she still does, and part of what she also does on that is, okay, I'm going to print off how they like to and how they don't like to be talked and communicated with.
Yeah.
On their door, on their office. And so now when you go into that person, now you have the ability to have those real, raw, honest, truthful conversations. If they need to be warmed up first and you need to chit chat about the weekend, the baseball game, the kids, the family, the grocery shopping, whatever the fuck it is, you chit chat about that and warm that person up, even if you're a direct and to the point person. And so that was a lot of eye-opening things on there. I think it did answer the question and look, I don't think we're going to be able to answer that question on a deep enough level on this show without like getting into all the specifics about what it is that you do. So I'm going to take this opportunity to shamelessly plug you that if you're like, well, that was a great cliffhanger for my business, I want to actually have this implemented in there, reach out to Bryan and his crew. You can do that in a few different places. So resultsgroupllc.com. We'll also put all of these in the show notes for later. You can send them an email if you want, Bryan, Bryan, at resultsgroupllc.com. And they also have the intermetricsnorthamerica.com. Intermetricsnorthamerica.com is how you can reach out to him to really do a deep dive in terms of your business, have that conversation, and see what it is that's going to work best for you and your organization to get the right people in the right seats to move your business forward.
Yeah, and I think, from that standpoint of just the, and I can give a high level, because I mean, if I'm listening to this, I'm gonna sit there and go, yeah, I could probably pull some of that stuff out of the information that I already have. And so when you talk about like secrets revealed, so if we go to the MRI level, let's say, you okay, Evan, if I bring you up real quick on this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So like on the axiological one, the valuing of what you think about at the deepest levels, like, so you've got some harmonious things that come out, but on the deepest level, your number one talent that you lead with is your ability to read, understand people. And it's on page 4. So if you just scroll up to page 4, there you go. So this is in what order Evan thinks about the world outside of him. And then it's in what order Evan thinks about the world inside of him. So that empathy is the internal intrinsic. So if this is like the deepest level, so anytime Evan walks into a room, the first thing he does is read the room with like wicked freaking HD clarity. And then that plus sign just means that not only does he read it, he's looking for a personal way to connect. And how do we form a personal connection? And your mind is going at wicked fast speed to say, how do we make a connection? How do we make a connection? And once you get that connection, your body releases a little dopamine and you go, okay, I'm chill. I now get it. And then also, it also means that you filter everything from a personal perspective. So I might be kind of joking with you and kind of say something that might be a little bit maybe, kind of that like guys, kind of thing. And I could piss you off and I don't really realize it because you're filtering it from that personal side. And you're in deep down, you're like, well, fuck you, Arzani. Right? You may not say it, but you're going to feel it. Right. And then it's personal to you because that empathy is that filter. And then the second thing your brain does at that practical thinking level, that's the external extrinsic, which is like your brain figuring out how to get results. And so you joke probably about having adult ADD because you can't think about one thing for more than like 3 to 5 minutes because that practical thinking is wicked high. So if you're doing a simple task, then you get like squirrel, shiny ball. And it's cool because Thad is exactly the opposite. Thad actually, he probably sits there and he's a man of fewer. This is
mine, by the way, page 4.
There you go, yeah. So Thad's a man of fewer words. He's like, you could have said that. You said that like in 7 minutes. You could have said it in 1. Right. And if you go back and read the podcast, I watch the podcast, it's probably Evan that's running, talking more. And Thad's like, boom. Right. And then Evan, while you understand people, it's the afterthought. You're not consumed by it. And so there's a good yin and yang. And then that deeper level piece, that systems judgment for Thad, that's like the systemic 30,000 foot view. And so what Thad leads with, the first thing Thad leads with is what's the answer? And then the afterthought is how are people going to receive that? And then what's the bigger picture? And so sometimes the filter between your brain and your mouth is kind of thin. So you might say something. I probably should have said that different, but it wasn't there. Right. And then the systems judgment, that piece there, that's like that minus sign after systems judgment. Thad, you are like the anti establishment, anti-rule. I mean, you don't want any structure and you're at your best, the more freedom you're given. Give you the freedom, and you're going to do this random creative little thing inside of you. But that's a thinking thing. Now, the Captain Jack Sparrow compass piece, you guys I love it because you're willing to just tell me about it. So the self-direction, I'll go all the way to the right. The self-direction is your Captain Jack Sparrow compass. And just show, and these can kind of move on the internal side. So you got a clear vision of where you're going, but the minus after the self-direction just says there's a lot of moldable, movable stuff in there. And once that shit gets clarified, you're going to become a stubborn bastard. But for right now, you're still open to some ideas around how to get to where you're going. The role awareness is lower. So it's like, you know what? I'm not really worried about whether I'm in dad role or business role, or you're all over the place right now. But there's some identity that comes from success or failure because there's a plus sign. The self-belief, self-esteem 6.2, that's actually the average of what we see right now in North America. And the minus just simply says, you still believe you can get better. You're humble and believe you can get better. Now, that self-belief, self-esteem isn't about how much self-confidence you have. It's the order you take yourself into account with everything else going on around you. So if you go over to Evans, so Evan thinks first about the people, then he thinks about 10,000 ways to share the information about the people. And then the afterthought is, how are we going to get there? And so you could be a little bit more of a pragmatic. So both of you guys are going to sit there and think about, what are we going to do right here, right now? And the planning down the path of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 months, that's the afterthought. And so if I was going to coach and counsel you guys, I'd say, hey, you guys need to have probably a stand-up, every 3 or 4 days on talking about what's happening in a month and 6 months and in a year. Because what'll happen is you guys will get work. You'll work on what's right in front of you because your brain sees it. And Evan's going to make sure that people like how it is, and Thad's going to be like, just freaking do it, whatever. Now,
done is one of my biggest mottos is done is better than perfect.
Aces, yeah. And we'll go up to the next one in a second. But anyway, so Evan, your self-direction, your Captain Jack Sparrow compass on the far right, just shows that there isn't as much clarity there either right now. But the plus sign just means that you're very optimistic you're going to figure it out. So what little you do see, you're pretty stubborn about it. Role awareness, you're all over the board right now. But there is identity that comes from it. And your self-belief, self-esteem is in that same sweet spot. But here's the thing. There's nothing to be worried about that. If I was down around like 3 or 2 or 1, I'd say, hey, you're a little hard on yourself. This just simply says that you got some clarity into yourself. The minus sign says I can still get better. But what it shows me is internally, you think of everybody, everything else outside of you before you think about yourself. So it's very selfless, and you're all in. So this is the what you think about. So go up one page there. So why does Evan do it? Well, Evan wants to win economic. He values his time. He hates getting passed on the interstate, and he likes to know what we can, get paid for it. And you know what? The political says, I want to be in charge. And this is that personal engagement. So I want to be in charge and I want to freaking win. And he wants to do it in a unique way. So he wants to get paid to do shit in a unique way. He wants to own his world. And then the aesthetic is he's a pot stirrer. So rather than creating harmony and peace, he just mixes shit up and he's like, aces, I'm having a great day, right? The altruism being a little lower just says, I'll help you, but I'll help you if you want to get better. If you don't, then, but then you feel guilty sometimes, Evan, because you're like, but I like him. And so then you feel conflicted inside, like, I like you, but you're a loser. But you ask, oh, shit. So you're always fighting in your head and heart because your empathy is so high. And I can relate. I'm a 9.5 empathy guy. And so I've been fired from being able to hire people for our company and pick my friends because I think I can fix everybody. Right. And the regulatory being low just simply says, I don't want to build process and system unless it's going to help us win, make money, and I can be in control. And you learn the shit you got to learn. And it's always related to your other values. So that's kind of that's the why. So as long as you're engaged in activities that allow you to see how they contribute, save your time, you're in control, and you get to mess with stuff, and you don't have to just build process and system, rock and roll. So I look at that. And so they go over to Thad. So Thad says, you know what? I want to be in control. I'll take it. Leave it alone. I own this bitch, right? And he's like, I'm helping we help. He'll help them because the altruism is low. He'll help them if they're on his team, right? So, and here's the thing. The political is competitive, but the political is competitive for the team. Economic is I'm competitive for me. So the regulatory being higher just simply says that Thad wants to build structure and rules as long as it helps the team win. And he does like to do it in a unique way. you know, and in certain aspects, you know, the aesthetic is in that middle range. So some stuff you care about harmony, and some stuff you're like, whatever. So you go to the top, which is what everybody has. This is the how piece, the how you do what you do, which is page 2. So Thad is a proactive, optimistic guy who moves 1,000,000 miles an hour and hates following rules. That's your disc, right? He's pissed off, but he also smiles about being pissed off. Right? And he moves 1,000,000 miles an hour. And the C says he doesn't like, but he's very challenging to the status quo. And so if I did a summary on Thad, I'd say that Thad is a pragmatist. He likes to work in the moment. He wants to be in charge. Ridiculously motivated to do those kind of things and establish order. But how does he do it? In a proactive, optimistic, and challenging sort of way. So you take all 3 of those and go, as long as he's in a role where he gets to be proactive and he gets to be in charge, lead, and gets to he's got a strong compass inside of him. And when I asked him earlier, he said, my why is my family. And that's that regulatory value. If you go back down one page, Thad, you've got a moral set of, you've got a compass inside you that says, here's my don't ever mess with me ons. That's the regulatory. And you cross those, and now you're going to really have a pissed off Thad, right? That's the deal right there. So I didn't ask you permission. Is it Thaddeus or Thad? See, I should have done
You know what? I introduced myself as Thaddeus. And
there you go.
That, cool. If you call me Thad, whatever. Don't give a shit.
Rock and roll. Yeah. So there you go. And so then it's a good compliment because Evan's more of, he's like the entertainer. He's like, hey, let's smile and sing Kumbaya. And he's more steady. So Thad does appreciate having some consistency, doesn't like following rules. And you could be a little bit more of, you know, you should probably attack the problem, but you're going to wait because Thad will probably kill it before you have to deal with it, Evan. And so, you know,
true. A lot of truth.
Evan, you work in spurts. So like you'll work in like 7, 8, 15-minute increments. You'll get a shitload done, but then you got to decompress, let that rubber band kind of slide. Because if I put you in a role where you got to kill every day, you'll do it for a period of time because you get the return on the investment, the economic and political, but that starts to kind of drain the battery sometimes. So being able to kind of have those moments where you give yourself the grace to work in spurts and also work in situations where you don't have to be the bad guy all the time, because that will drain the shit out of you, because you've got the high I, which means I want the experience to be a positive one. And I sometimes sacrifice the results for the experience. That's what the high I, low D says. But if you see how it can be competitive, so you might let it build. And then when you blow up, it's more of you're like, I probably shouldn't have said that. I not only don't like how he does, I don't like this close, right? Because they get a little personal, but whatever. But so when I have all 3 of those, I sit there and go, okay, so this is the natural talent set, the what, which is page 4. This is why they're motivated to use those talents, which is page 3. And then how do they show up? How do they communicate, which is page 2. So the what, the why, and the how. So that's why when we get into this, it's like I've got an X-ray, a CAT scan, and an MRI, and with acute accuracy. So you could have the exact same disc, exact same PI, exact same Enneagram or whatever, or maybe have the same top 2 on the strengths finder, the Gallup. But you get into the deeper levels and look at thinking wise. Now you start going, oh, this is what you're filtering. This is the data set you're bringing in. So, and again, I don't drink the Kool-Aid and believe that these things can solve all problems, because you got to take into account paradigm, life experience, intellectual quotient. But you really get kind of tight. So my son actually is 21, full-time student, and I put him to work for one of our clients who is a heating and cooling company. And I'm like, dude, you're going to go in and be an installation technician. You can make $100,000 if you want to do 2 installs a day. And he's a super intelligent kid. So he's also getting his electrician certificate through a community college. And it's funny because like they didn't have any installs from do yesterday. He came home and he was so pissed off. He goes, I hate wasting my time. Because, dude, Antonio, he will be a general manager, maybe an owner of an HVAC company, home heating. He'll do it. And he will be freaking amazing. And so I said, you got to go in and grind. You got to take out the trash. You got to sweep the floors. And he's willing to do that. I raised the kids right. I beat the shit out of them, and not literally. I guess some HR
figuratively.
Got to be careful of that today.
I know, yeah. But I raised them right. They respect authority and they work hard. So, but he's got all of those components in him. So there you go. Amazing. I talk too much sometimes. I get excited about this shit. We could talk for hours, bro.
Totally. Like I'm just like when you and I almost wish that I could remember vividly, the way that Kathy broke it down, because like the stuff that you're saying is like you're nailing it right on the head for how Evan and I interact and how we are and what we do. But then, I mean, the next further conversation was parlaying that into our roles and our strengths as an individual, as well as in our organization. Where does it fit for their roles and responsibilities? And that's what you guys do at a super high level based on this, because like, Evan and I are laughing and nodding and agreeing, because all the shit you said is 100% accurate on who we are. And for those that are listening to this podcast later, go back and watch this on YouTube, because you're going to actually see what he was talking about in the reports and stuff that are on there. But like knowing introspectively what it is that you're good at and what you're not good at, and how you're going to do these things and how you're not going to do these things, and what you're going to excel at and what you're not going to excel at, is really going to be the catalyst for you in your business, in your organization. Or if you're watching this in non-business owner role, because we do have individuals who watch this who aren't business owners as well, also do something like this too, because now you're going to see where do you fit into the grander scheme of the organization, the grander scheme of the picture. What's going to satisfy you as self? Because when you hear this, and if you're put into a role that you dislike, that you don't want to do, you're going to fucking hate it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't match to what some of your strengths are and how you're going to interact. And like, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. We talked about the Gallup's Clifton Strengths Assessment. It talks about living in your strengths. And I've had some similar conversations. I posted my Colby A assessment a couple weeks ago, and somebody's like, well, it's always good to know your strengths, but it's also good to work on your weaknesses to get better at that. If you want to achieve true, I don't want to use the word happiness in this case, but if you want to achieve true success, true fulfillment, true gratification, should you work solely in your strengths, or should you work in your strengths while also working on your weaknesses at the same time?
So we define it a little differently. So we look at strengths, talents, and here's the cool thing: Gallup did a shitload of research, and so they're not having an opinion; they're giving you data. Mm-hmm. And they're telling you working your strengths. We did an 11-year-long research project, and we have validated instruments in 3 different psychologies. And here's what we found. There was no correlation between success and talents. None. Mm-hmm. What we found is that the individuals that were wildly successful had all the things you said, wicked self-awareness, and then they were authentic. And so when they recognized that they were moving into a space that's not a weakness, it's a blind spot, meaning I don't naturally see it. And so if I don't naturally see it at a deep, deep level, not personality-wise on that surface stuff, but at a deep, deep level, if I don't naturally see it, then it requires energy for me to do that. And so if I take a role that requires me to do that blind spot every day, and like you said, I'm going to hate my life. Now what happens is if I choose to stay there and I stay inauthentic to myself, then I manufacture weakness. So when we talk about it, we say everybody has blind spots. Weaknesses are a choice. Because if I take on a role and I stay in that role that requires me to be proficient at a blind spot, there you go. So I do shit every day that's maybe not in my natural talent set. But here's the thing. I go into that situation eyes wide open that it's not a natural talent. And B, I also go into it with the awareness that says I either have a process that helps complement me or I've got an individual. And I also go into it with 100% of my freaking energy because I'm not drained because most of my day is working in my talent set. So I'm going to do some shit throughout the day that I don't like. But you know what? I've got all my energy. But if I'm blowing all my energy on shit that I hate, and now I got to go do something that goes even further. Now because engagement is the most popular term in HR right now. And if I got a group of people that are engaged, they're motivated and driven, and they're aligned with it, when they have to stretch and flex to go do that non-talent thing, it's not a big deal. Now, if I don't have a deadline, and here's a little bit of a secret. So if I'm in a non-talent area, right, doing something that's incongruent to my personality or not engaged by it, as long as I have a timeline wrapped to that says, look, in 4 months or in 6 months, then what happens is if I know there's an end, then my amygdala doesn't kick in because I don't sit there and go, I got to fight this. I have a cerebral cortex activated that goes, here's how I can work around it or work with it because I know that it's going to end. And so I have a lot more ability to do a non-talent thing longer if I'm in that zone. And so here's what I'll tell people that want to work on their weaknesses. I don't know the last time I ever spent 10 hours a day trying to learn to write with my left hand. I've never accidentally chosen to do that. And so people that want to do that typically are people that, are super high theoretical, that just love to learn for the sake of learning. But here's the thing. I ask people, could you ever become proficient writing with your opposite hand? And they go, I could become better. Okay. How much energy would it take for you to become better? Oh, this. And I go, would you ever get as good as your regular hand? And they go, if I try hard enough. And I said, you don't know. You're wrong. And they go, how do you know? Ask someone that's been through a traumatic brain injury or a stroke what it's like to learn to create synaptic patterns, because that's what happens. At a young age, you start to do something and you create a synapse. And then the more you do it, your body produces a chemical called myelin, which enrobes that synapse that creates a superhighway, which gives you bandwidth, depth, capacity, and velocity to do it so fast. I don't have that as much commitment to write with my opposite hand as a stroke victim or a traumatic brain injury victim. And they're never as proficient. So why the hell am I going to do something that I know flat out doesn't work? Because I read a book and I'm going to live in a vacuum and go, I'm going to drink Kool-Aid and become an introvert who's super analytical. Screw that, right? If I want to be miserable, God bless America, right? But I choose not to be miserable. So I pay people to do the shit that I suck at, earn the right to do it. And I do a little bit each day that I don't like, but it's okay. Eventually I'll get to that place. So, and here's the thing, and I'll shut up. We'll go to the next thing. But outside of every president or CEO's office, what does she have or what does he have? They have an assistant. Yeah. And what does that assistant do? Does all the shit that they don't want to do so they can do their freaking job. I've got some salespeople that I've worked with over the last 22 years. I got a guy, there's no shit, and I can prove it. If anybody wants to, he made $165,000 last month. Okay? He's got 4 assistants. This dude is the mother effing OG, right? He got a 14 in his ACT, is severely dyslexic, and voted most likely to be a drug dealer when he graduated high school. He's 40 years old. His bottom 3 vertebrae are fused, and he drives a piece of shit Toyota Camry, and he goes in the back of the facilities that he works with. But he thinks the right way, and every year we get rid of his bottom 10%. We give him away to the other sales team, and he has 4 assistants, and the company wouldn't provide it to him, but we created a genius process for him to where off the books he was paying people to do shit that he wasn't going to do. We actually created 2 email addresses for people to read his emails before he has to read them. So why can't somebody who's at a lower level earn the right to have an assistant if they're going to be an individual contributor and they're the baddest mother effer on the planet? Why not? Right? Why freaking not? And I've proved it. And in that company, I got 3 people that literally between the 3 of them, they drive $1 million a month of gross trading margin to the bottom line every month in a highly commoditized, ridiculously competitive market. And the one guy drives $685,000 a month of himself of GP. So I'm just telling you, that's the model. And that's what I've created in my company, in my companies. I don't do the shit that I suck at. I've got people that love to do it, and they're empowered to hold me accountable and punch me in the nuts when I'm outside my lane. And I welcome it. I go, thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Jennifer, because I shouldn't be doing that. God bless you. Now, I want to do it, but I shouldn't do it because it's going to cost me money, time, energy, effort, and ultimately I'm not going to get my lifeline taken care of because that pisses me off when I get off the lifeline. So, I don't know. But that's it, man, right there.
Wow.
I just wrote down a note to hire the person that's going to punch us in the nuts when we get outside of our lane.
That's it. That's it right there. Seriously. And here's the thing. When they do it, you've got to empower them and thank them. I don't care if they're 21 years old, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I'm working with a chief of police of a large police force. I'm working and I told him, dude, we need a Gregectomy. You're a turnaround specialist. You've been here for 4 years. It's turned around. And he was pissed off because his lieutenants and his captains weren't doing stuff. I said, you know why they're not doing it? Because you've got them all hooked up to the proverbial teats, man. You think you're the man. No, you've become a psycho. Leave the office. Quit showing up. So for the last 3 months, he's not been to one staff meeting. He doesn't go to the meetings at all. And he goes, dude, I had coffee with him yesterday. He goes, I had a proud dad moment. I said, what's the proud dad moment? He goes, my people aren't as bad as I thought they were. I said, no shit. He goes, yeah. He goes, I stopped going to the meetings and they're solving problems. They're taking care of stuff. They're bringing me ideas. I'm like, really? Right? And he thinks I'm brilliant. I didn't do shit. I just said, stop going. Right? But the reality is I know his talent set and all of his people around him. And so sometimes the answer is so obvious, it's too stupid and simple. And at the same time, it's got to be an objective way to look at the subjective nature of teams and talent. And so, that's what's just so fun. So, I mean, whether it's a service technician, I mean, I can take an installation tech, look at him and go, dude, this is your next top sales guy. But if we teach him to pay the price, to become empathetic to what the realities are going to be of the guys going out and installing the stuff, because the worst problem is the sales guys understand the shit that they sold has to be done. Mm-hmm. You walk down there and there's cat shit everywhere. And there's, you got this, that, and another thing. And it's a miserable location. And you got all this other stuff. If you know what that is like, you're going to do a better job of selling and working with that homeowner, right? Or a service technician, how to create the value and understand. So giving those perspectives and helping them as they move through that process, or admin, and I love the call center people are amazing because you teach them to run scripts and understand psychology, helping them understand this is your gift. So it doesn't matter. They're all ridiculously valuable, but the more you empower them with knowledge of themselves as to why they struggle, and it's a blind spot, not a weakness. But if you choose not to investigate it introspectively to figure out a process or a person that can complement you, or allow yourself to be kicked in the proverbial balls, whatever you want to call it, then you're manufacturing weakness. So weakness is a choice. Blind spots are natural. How do I get paid to do what I'm built to do, or earn the right? Right.
So I like that. Earn the right. When you earn the right, like that's exactly what when somebody starts a business, you've got to do all your chief cook, chef, bottle washer, everything, right? Yeah. And you've got to go through the shit in order to be able to do that. But once you've built to that point, I think of like when I hear, that Ishmael Valdez, right? One of the things that he's got a 60, 70, $80 million per year business. I don't even know what it's at now, pacing for 100 million maybe this year. I don't know. The guy's on a fucking rocket ship, man. Yeah. But like his thing now is like, I'm going to insert myself into the business wherever I have the problem to be able to help try to fix it and alleviate that, because he surrounded himself with the talent now to be able to fix and do those problems. And now he just picks and chooses where he's going to put himself into battle based off of his strengths, which is a super powerful thing. So I want to touch on one thing, and then Evan, you might have something after that, but you talked the bottom 10%, and you get rid of them. That was the example of the one person that you chatted about, and he gets rid of his bottom 10%, the guy that's earning $165,000 per year.
Yeah, the bottom 10% of clients, yeah.
So I wanted to touch a little on that. What's that?
I lost the microphone on that. Is it my bad?
I did too.
Yeah.
No, sorry. I might have been looking down and talking at the same time. So you chatted the bottom 10% and reducing and getting rid of the people at the bottom 10%. What does that mean? Is it specific to clients, specific to your team, sales organizations? What?
I got you. Yeah. So when I say the bottom 10%, I worked for General Electric in the 90s, and that was Jack Welch's philosophy: is the bottom 10% going to go? I'm not referring to that. What I was saying was this individual has a sales portfolio of clients that he sells. And so we take the bottom 10% of his customers that are the least profitable, and we just slide them over to other salespeople that are growing their books, which gives them bandwidth to go find more. So that's what I was referring to in terms of that. But when I look at talent, I always look at talent in terms of what's their capacity. What's their capacity for doing more or staying in their lane. And that's the way we look at people and make sure that they're in their genius or they can get back into it. So one of the things we spend a lot of time on, which would be interesting, is helping people go from being at that VP level or senior VP level back into where their talent sets are. And doing it in a way that's edifying and equitable and truly in a way that allows the rest of the organization to go, that's the right thing. So I got a client that's wildly successful, and they hired us, they retained us, and they said, here's our BHAGs, right? Our big, hairy, audacious goals, whatever. And so I'm like, all right, cool. And they said, and here's the thing. We've outgrown our VP of sales. We need someone that's more in this admin area. but we don't want to lose him. He's been with us for 11 years. We value this dude ridiculously well. They said, I need you to figure out how to get him to move down back into being a contributor. Like, all right. And they said, do it and don't lose him because he's wild. The connections he has and everything else. And then the loyalty that they have for the guy. So I went through his data, did all this kind of stuff. So at Christmas and then January meeting, he actually did the announcement. We went through it all. And what I ended up doing was I challenged him to go visit with his spouse and talk about their goals and what they wanted to do, right? Align your life with your priorities. Big deal. Mm-hmm. So he did that with his spouse for about 2 months. He came back and he goes, this is what I want to do. I want to send my 2 kids to private school. This is what it costs. And he outlined everything. So he announced to the sales team in January meeting, he said, I want you to all know it's been an honor to work with you. I'm now promoting myself into being the top performing salesperson. You better watch out. Right. And You know what? He's number 2 right now. And he started back at right. And so that was so like that. I mean, just rewarding and cool. And the owners are like, how did you do it? I'm like, we created objectivity on this subjective thing. And they're like, dude, he is so happy. He's killing. Like, well, no shit. Right. So that's, I mean, I'm a big fan of, I don't like losing people because here's the deal. If you've got the right attitude, we will align you wherever you want to be. Attitude's a choice. If you've got a shitty attitude, then we may have a goal issue, engagement issue, or we truly just have some because attitude's a choice. And so we'll figure out roles, goals, and alignment and engagement. And if they still bring that shitty attitude, you're gone. I don't care how talented you are. And because that sets the tone for the rest of the organization. Goes, you know what? We want people that want to be here and are engaged. So I don't care. And if they're the bottom 10%, when we raise the bar, then they'll self-select out because we'll make them so uncomfortable that they will choose to move on, move out, move up. But I'm not a big fan of just firing people unless they're doing something, catastrophic. Because I'm grateful that I was given a chance when I sucked. There's times in my career I would have fired myself, but I'm grateful for the grace they gave me to kind of work through and figure out because it was a lack of vision and goal for myself because I became complacent, which became attitudinally dysfunctional, and I became a terrorist within the organization. So I was creating factions and telling people how stupid the owner was and how dumb these processes were, and I was that guy. I've been there, and now I'm that guy. I'm the stupid owner, right? I'm the guy that's whacked. I got it.
Yep.
Well, and I love this comment from earlier. This was a good friend of ours, Tersh Blissett. He said someone should really consider giving Bryan some coffee to pep him up, because clearly you're not energized enough right now. But
I love that. That's passion, is what that is.
Yes, exactly.
We should get you and Michael Torbe on a show together and just go back and forth because they'd have to turn the volume right down. So Michael Torbe, he even said on the show, he's like, I yell at people, and he just gets so fired up and so passionate about what he does. That he just gets going. Like you two, like you reminded me so much of like just the passion that he oozes with the passion that you ooze, that fire inside to be able to really take what it is you do and just crush it.
Well, I appreciate what you guys do. I mean, so hopefully there's been a couple nuggets, and again, whatever I can do, to help support what you're doing. I mean, because I love the blue collar world, man. That's my whole, live, eat, breathe, sleep, poop, eat, brother. That's it right there. So
I love it.
You can say shit. It's okay.
I think it's ingrained in him. He said it so many times. Like he can't say it any other way.
Live, breathe, sleep, shit, pee. No, I think poop, pee works better.
Yeah, way better. It catches people, right?
You'd have to say piss. You'd have to say piss instead of pee.
Yeah, live, breathe, sleep, piss, pee. I'll work on that. I'll report back to you, Thad.
All right, sounds good.
Here's the thing: if you got any value out of this show, definitely reach out to Bryan. I mean, knowing your priorities, how to make decisions, aligning your life with priorities, helping to download the knowledge of self-awareness into your people. That is what he is an expert at. You can definitely reach out to him again at resultsgroupllc.com. Last question for you, my friend. What is one question you wish people would ask you more, but they don't?
I think probably it's interesting. I love the fact you don't send questions out ahead of time too. That's way easier. So the one question I wish they'd ask that they don't. I think how do you make it? How do you be successful? I think that's probably the question. what does it take to be successful, working for an employer? That's how do I make it? How do I get started? How do I, that's it right there.
So let me ask you this question. And I love that you qualified with employer, because you're not talking about the business owner, the entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
So how does one become more successful working as an employer?
Be willing to do all of the shit that nobody else will. Show up early, stay late, take out the trash, be unique. I remember when I got the opportunity to work for GE Capital and I wasn't qualified. I literally got the job when two guys who had master's degree in marketing and sale, these guys were freaking studs, and I'm a college dropout. Okay. Which there you go. There you go. And they said to me, why should we hire you? I said, because you got to find me. And I didn't even have dress pants at the time. I had jeans, and the dress pants didn't fit because my ass had gotten too big and my zipper was out. So I held my leather credenza over the top, borrowed a sports jacket, and had a tie. And then we got to find you. I said, if you can't teach me what you do, then you guys suck. And I'm sitting at this big, huge freaking meeting, right? And they're like, I said, but I guarantee you, I will work harder than anybody else here. You give me 6 months, and then you could fire me at the end of every month. And at the end of 6 months, I had one of those cubicles, and both those little bastards got fired because I took the phone book and the phone, and I did everything and so that's it. You just quit wishing away your moment to get the job you don't got. Be a performing asset. Throw off dividend checks every fucking month. And if your owner doesn't walk around going, I could never, ever lose Bryan, I don't give a shit what the economy does. I will take that guy to battle with me. Why? Because he's always there. He works his ass off. I missed the pictures for my brother's wedding because I'd started a new job for a company I fell in love with. And my mom was so pissed. And I go, Mom, I don't care if you're pissed. Use technology to dub me in. This was back in like 2001. And I'm like, just dub me in. I don't care. And I told my brother that. I said, hey, dude, I'm doing the job I love, and I'm sorry. And he goes, I understand, Bryan. So here's the deal. How fucking committed are you, right? I missed my brother's wedding pictures, right? I mean, I was 45 days from bankruptcy when I started Results Group. Okay. I mean, I've had my nuts stretched out across the table a lot of my life. My dad was a paramedic. My mom cut hair. I didn't come from money. That's the question you'll ask you is, how'd you get started? Fucking work my ass off. I did what anybody else would not do. Show up early, stay late, and I would work 24 hours. One time I flew to Boston. I got in LaGuardia. LaGuardia couldn't get me to Boston. I had 8 o'clock train the next day. I rented a car, drove all night, showed up at 7:40, and trained from 8 until 5 that day. Went to dinner, went to bed, got the next. So you know what, dude? That's the thing, guys. I mean, if you're an employee, quit trying to become the next thing and just be amazing at where you're at, and then you make your own luck and the doors open up. And there's days, I'm telling you right now, I've cried and I've fucking worried, man. 4 kids, my wife, dude, she is the most patient, humble, loving, kind. Holy shit. So yeah, I mean, I know one day I'll grow up and I won't cuss anymore, but dude, I'm telling you right now, if you're not willing to fucking do the job that you got and 2 others beside you that are beneath you, in my office, I own the building. I run around, I fucking kick out the trash and people rent my training room from me. And the trainers that don't even know him because they're from some other company, they think I'm the janitor. I don't give a shit who I am. I still do it. Right? So just be a performing asset, not a reoccurring liability. And just do what nobody else will do. So there you go. That's it.
Writing that down.
Yeah. I don't even.
I remember saying I'm gonna be a performing asset, not a reoccurring liability. That's when I was barely making it, man. Every time we had a kid, I got a $50,000 a year increase in pay because I figured out how to do it. So then my external motivation was that. Now my motivations come inside of me. But back then, after 4 kids, my wife's like, hey, this baby making thing on motivation for making more money is over. Figure some shit out. Right? So, but yeah, it
sounds like she's your coach.
She is my coach, dude. I'd be a loser in a gutter without her. I'm a shitty employee. I'm serious. I'm grateful. I've had a lot of good luck, and I try to learn from it. So there you go.
like you said, as a great employee, you make your own luck. So,
and don't worry about not getting recognized or some boss who gives you shit. I mean, come on, get over it. Fucking just do it. If you don't like it, go work somewhere else. But trust me, every owner's crazy. Every business is fucked up. They all are, dude. That's life, right? Just get over it and work. And don't get emotional about the shit you can't control. So just make it happen. All right. I know we've gone over. So
there's the talk for millennials right there. I mean, everyone needs to hear it, but specifically.
And here's the great thing about being a millennial. You can look way different really quick. That's what's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Take out the trash. Pick up the break room and shit, right? Do some dishes.
Right. Crazy.
Right? You can look different fast.
There you go. There's a new quote. Look different fast. I made that shit up. You can use it, Thad.
We're going to put that shit on a shirt.
Technically, I am a millennial by age of birth, but I definitely do not identify as a millennial.
And in today's day and age, you can identify however you want.
Yeah. I want to identify as a millennial because I want to be hired and still be like 25 because I got a lot of shit to do before I die. Let's go.
There you go. Extend that timeline. Bryan, this has been an absolute pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for dropping the knowledge, bringing the nuggets, bringing the fire, bringing the passion. Absolutely incredible. I'm going to be re-listening to this episode over and over. I took a bunch of notes, not just notes of like shit that was cool that you said, but actual action items of things that I'm going to do. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. And until next time, cheers.
Cheers, boys.
Thanks for watching another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed. Before you go, two quick things. First off, join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/HVAC Revealed. The other thing, if you took one tiny bit of information out of the show, no matter how big, no matter how small, all we ask is for you to introduce this show to one person in your contacts list. That's it. That's all. One person. So they too can unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Until next time.